Hey guys, and welcome to another brand new video. In this video, we actually have some pretty crazy news to go and talk about over here and kind of doing the more of the deep down discussion in regards to PlayStation's third-party contracts and basically dealing with different types of companies and all of that, basically like say Square Enix, etc. And as well why Xbox just kind of wants to say whatever and go and drop the billions of dollars to go and buy out any company that they kind of want to go and have. There's actually like a very intriguing back and forth when it comes to all this stuff, at least in my opinion, when it comes to the, well, I guess quality of partnerships versus just buying out actual talent and kind of what that means for the gaming ecosystem as a whole. So overall, I have some really cool stuff. We have a really kind of big in-depth actual article too, as well, talk about the economics of this stuff. Just a lot of really intriguing things to go cover throughout this. So if you guys are, well, going to enjoy it, and as well, make sure you guys are subscribed. We have the how link down below for the Samsung promo. If you guys want to save $50, you guys save a bunch of money, do the reservations down below. Check that on out. We have the Twitter and Twitch link down below and Amazon links too, and let's dive into the video itself. So basically, they have like these kind of more in-depth arguments when it comes to this ongoing Activision acquisition, but as well when it comes to other things such as the Bungie acquisition. PlayStation usually trying to go and foster up and building up brand new parties, but more specifically, PlayStation trying their best to go and, well, forego out buying these acquisitions and more so trying to have a strategic partnership when it comes to certain games. Now, as you guys probably know, PlayStation itself actually has had some pretty good partnerships. A good example is, well, Final Fantasy 16. They somehow had a chance to go work conveniently with Square Enix to go make sure that Final Fantasy 16 is apparently on PlayStation. A good example as well is sometimes we'll see other various games, such as maybe even Call of Duty, which has been under the really big hot seat when it comes to them having a proper individual contract when it comes to them, well, basically making the game. And a good example for that is when they had Call of Duty, they had early access beta, so more of a third-party deal with Activision to make sure they had their games a little bit earlier or have specific examples and like basically benefits, and then maybe they'll go either have a better contract in terms of giving out better revenue numbers, say for PlayStation, or as well maybe they'll do like more additional marketing on their social medias and put in the front store or whatever it might be. There's usually some sort of a backroom deal to make these things happen. Now obviously we also have Microsoft too, that's been more on the actual buying rather than fostering up the actual game things, which is totally fine. It's just a completely different marketing strategy. It kind of comes down to these two major factors over here when it comes to PlayStation. Has their exclusive third-party deals that are way cheaper for Sony to do than for Microsoft. And a good example for this one is, well, the big deal is that there's more PlayStation users, so basically companies get a lot more extra benefit when it comes to PlayStation. A good example for this is, let's say there's 50 million PlayStation 5s, arbitrary number, and then there's maybe, let's say, 20 Xbox Series X's and S's. And obviously for that one, that's still a good market. Like if you're a game company, you can't somehow swing having both of those as your platform, you're going to want to, like, because that's an extra 70 million people in total, and that's all around kind of fine. But the bigger deal with these third-party deals is that there's typically some sort of benefit and why Sony usually likes to go and push these approaches over anything else. A good example on this one is, say, the PlayStation. Once again, let's say you have a Call of Duty. You can maybe go and guarantee a lot more pre-orders when it comes to specific games, etc., because that basically means you could be like, we'll put you on the front page. We'll have pre-orders maybe a week early. We'll try to go cut more specific deals. We'll try to go and put more Twitter promotions or state of play promotions and push up your game a little bit better. But as well, since they also have more people out there, they have more of a merit. It's basically saying, hey, we have a 50 million potential audience. That's a pretty active player base, say for Call of Duty, etc. And we saw a lot of numbers that like 8 million people or so were very hardcore and basically only played Call of Duty, and those are really good numbers to kind of bring back to Activision, stating, hey, like we have like at least 10 million really hardcore people that really want to go play this game that will buy it probably next year, no matter what, and they're going to be very loyal towards you. Let's keep this third-party deal going on for as long as we can. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. And this kind of makes a lot of sense. Because if you can kind of go and this is kind of like if you just want to go and deal with just a better platform. As a good example, maybe even the streaming sphere, because you guys know I'm a Twitch partner. I always mention that Twitch has a lot more user base than, say, let's say Kick or Rumble as of right this second, which is totally fine because those things can still have a chance to grow, and that also would mean a lot of folks out there can also contribute towards that growth too as well, which I think is nice. But one of the bigger things to note is that, well, sometimes it's just not even worthwhile to want to go and buy out these companies. You either just go have a partnership with it and see what kind of happens, and you can kind of go from there. A good example is that PlayStation also has a really good strategic partnership with Epic Games, so Fortnite, Epic Games Store, etc. So right now they actually have a pretty big ownership equity stake in Fortnite and all these various games. So what would PlayStation want to do with their platform, instead of them fully buying out this, well, game company and just more so having a third-party deal, that one's a little bit of like in toss between the two. They just have a chance to go put them more on like the proper like front page and try to put more Fortnite promotions and try to do specific things like having PlayStation characters on Fortnite to make these games better. And that's kind of an intriguing strategy. We see that more especially with Square Enix, where they have their own specific, like, locked-in PlayStation deal, and I'm sure there's either some sort of money or some sort of long-term, like, hey, we'll make sure you're on the front page, we'll make sure your future games, like, maybe that don't sell as well, like Forspoken, get proper, like, media attention and, like, tweets and YouTube videos and trailers and front page, like, takeovers and stuff like that, which would make a lot of sense, too, as well, because it's one of those things, you scratch our backs, we'll scratch yours. And Final Fantasy 16 probably was a console seller. It wasn't probably the biggest one, such as like maybe God of War or Spider-Man will be, but it was still big deal, and those third-party deals are, well, really, really relevant. They matter a lot when it comes to stuff. While they go and say that Microsoft can, however, do the opposite. While Microsoft might be somewhat smaller in terms of the whole overall market share, they still have enough leverage to pull deals. Like, you could still want to have certain games that will be like, now we're going to release them both. We want to see what happens on both. Like, that matters. That's like a really big proper concept. However, though, Microsoft does what they want to do instead is they just buy the publishers, as you guys already saw with Bethesda, where they don't want to deal with these exclusivities. They don't want to deal with these contracts. They don't want to deal with Sony or PlayStation, all this other stuff going on. They just want to go and, like, exist. They just want to go and vibe. They just want to go make sure everything could be all around good. And that's why they've been trying to go buy Activision, why they already bought Bethesda. They say COD's a good example because Sony has been imposing, basically working with these like early betas, or having specific characters, or better deals with Black Activision itself, and through its agreements with Activision, restrictions even on Microsoft. And although it may not be the biggest restriction, like we can't have the game or whatever, it does go and say like, hey, we can go and have 99% of the game on Xbox, or get the game a little bit early and check it out, and get maybe 101% maybe of the game on PlayStation. And that's kind of a thing, well, it's not like really the biggest deal, and people, if they have Xboxes, they'll still play it on Xbox, or PC, they'll play it on PC. That's enough of a thing to kind of deter some folks from Xbox itself, or more so if you have both consoles, but if you pre-order, you get access earlier on PlayStation, you're probably going to pre-order on PlayStation, and just based on how lazy some folks are, they may just keep the same deal. Or as well, I think a bigger thing is the market share. If more people have PlayStations, they're more incentivized to want to go and once again work with third-party deals to go and, well, get that additional marketing or additional user base or whatever it might be. Kind of the topic point one that we discussed, and that also would mean that most of your friends that would go buy the game on PlayStation. It's kind of like back in the day when you either have a PS3 or an Xbox 360. If all your buds had a 360, you buy an Xbox because you want to play with all your friends. Or for me, a lot of my friends moved over to PC gaming, so I went and got a PC like 7 years ago. It's kind of how it works. So it's kind of the same thing for Call of Duty or these really big games, where if they just have more of a user base, and PlayStation has a more user base right now, then they're going to want to go play on the bigger user base game. And that's kind of why Xbox is like, hey, we really maybe can't just go and have these proper deals, because a game like Final Fantasy 16 would actually not sell as well on Xbox, just because there's less Xbox. This is fine, it's just normal, it's okay. But one of the bigger things to note is that, well, if they just buy out the company itself, they don't have to worry about that, like, because they want to put out a Game Pass or try to leverage it, or even use that leverage to get even more people buying Xbox consoles, which I think at the end of the day is a big thing to know. And, well, it's a big thing to see. So basically not economically viable for Microsoft to outbid Sony on COD given market shares, but buying all of the Activision deal and doing away with such partial exclusives, or even bringing COD to more gamers, is something Microsoft can do. Which is even more intriguing too as well, because at this point, that's kind of the same idea. If they can go make more money by selling Call of Duty on PlayStation and Nintendo and on PC, as well as owning the parent company, and as well having extra benefits on Xbox, that's the whole idea. That's kind of like what the initial idea back in like the first place. Which I agree. I think that's what should have happened overall. And we had a chance to do a little bit more of a deeper dive in this one. There's a lot of like patent talk, discussing, and kind of highlighting up all these issues where there is like an opportunity cost. Like, let's say you have a game on, say, PlayStation, there's going to be a massive opportunity cost, once again, saying that they own the majority of the market, that they're going to probably go on PlayStation instead of Xbox, whether it's the same exact product or not. And as well, it doesn't always necessarily mean that people are going to switch over unanimously unless everyone kind of moves over, which is why if they either just buy the platform and let the game stay on PlayStation but then profit off of it, and as well try to make sure the Xbox version also keeps growing, that's very nice. And as well, partial exclusives such as, say, the Square Enix type style games like Forspoken or Final Fantasy also do lead to a lot of issues as well, which is why PlayStation likes that. It leads into issues for Xbox, so it makes it easier for them to keep on rocking on out. And on top of that too, these partial deals are not like full-on buyouts. You have to worry about monopoly laws and antitrust laws, and that's kind of been the big issue with Xbox. And as well, multiplayer matchmaking too is probably the same issue with them having this like 50-50 split of wanting to have crossplay, or if they have crossplay, that means that people aren't specifically console loyal, which is actually probably worse for PlayStation, which is why they're usually kind of against it. So it's kind of intriguing to go and see this too as well, because right now it kind of seems like we almost want to see the big issues of long-term in streaming versus normal gaming and normal like partnerships as a whole. So I kind of want to hear your thoughts. Like, there's a lot more I could always deep dive into this one too, but it's kind of been crazy to kind of see these thoughts and comments and kind of pushing why Microsoft just wants to buy everything instead of, well, having these strategic partnerships. And it really just kind of comes down to the fact of they either got the money to buy it or they have to get the user base to play it, and that's what PlayStation has. So give me your thoughts and comments down below. Check on the how links too as well down below too. Same with the Twitter and Twitch stream. And I appreciate you guys all so much for watching here in the first place.